The mission is simple: to help high achievers naturally eliminate emotional and physical obstacles so they can optimize their life for higher achievement. Welcome. You have just entered the Genesis Zone. Good day, and welcome to the Genesis Zone show. This is Dr. Brian Brown. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. We are talking about estrogen dominance. And it's one of those subjects that's a little touchy for a lot of female clients that I work with. And if you ask any of the thousands of clients that I've worked with over the past 12 years, and you ask them, is estrogen dominance real? Most of them are going to say, yes, it's very real. But the conundrum is this: what's the underlying root cause? I recently received a phone call from a health professional who is a dietitian, and she is a personal coach for a lot of different people in the area, and was working with one of my clients, and had my client, who is in early 60s, convinced that this person had estrogen dominance, and they had no business taking estradiol, which is a bioidentical estrogen, because they had estrogen dominance. And so this person calls me to convince me that what she was doing was correct and the coaching she was giving was correct. And I had a basic conversation about the physiology of what's going on in the human body as we age, and the difference between conditions that look like estrogen dominance and conditions that are caused by something else. So when we use the term estrogen dominance in a lot of circles, it is really thought of or considered to be a condition, if you will, maybe even a diagnosis, even though there's no diagnosis code for estrogen dominance. But the problem is that we have to view this as more of a symptom cluster. So if a person is exhibiting symptoms of estrogen dominance, so to speak, then we need to be more specific and say, what is going on? Are they having breast tenderness? Are they having agitation and irritability? Are they having bloating? Are they having acne type issues, which can all be symptoms of elevated estrogen? Now, the problem is that we need to understand the root cause, because if you call something estrogen dominance, so to speak, or whatever, polycystic ovary syndrome, which is a horrible name for that condition as well, then we need to look at the root causes. What is actually causing this, and how can we correct it? And so what I'm going to talk to you today about is a very similar conversation that I had with this person that's a dietitian type coach. And we actually reached an impasse because she was not willing to see the physiology and simply believe that no person who is quote unquote estrogen dominant needs to be on estradiol. And I disagree with that wholeheartedly, because we're missing the root cause. So enough of the suspense. What is the root cause of quote unquote estrogen dominance? The root cause is insulin resistance. Okay. If you've hung around the show long enough, you've heard me talk about insulin resistance. Now, there are multiple reasons why insulin resistance can occur. One of the chiefest reasons is the fact that we live in a Western society, and we tend to eat a lot more carbohydrates, and we're exposed to more processed carbohydrates. Therefore, they convert to sugar more readily, or we're actually getting corn syrup and corn sugars and things like that in our diet that are causing this insulin resistance to build and build and build. Now, if you combine that with the normal aging process and understand that for men starting about age 30 and women starting about age 35, we get a 1 to 2% per year decline in hormone conversion or hormone output. One or the other, or usually both. And so at that point, we are having problems hormonally managing our metabolism. For example, If testosterone declines, which is one of the early hormones to decline in both men and women, we start losing muscle mass. And when we lose muscle mass, we lose our metabolism, because metabolism is based on proper muscle mass to fat mass ratio. So if that is out of balance, and fad diets can throw that out of balance, starvation diets can throw that out of balance, amphetamine use for weight loss, those weight loss clinics that do amphetamines, they can cause muscle mass loss because it's a starvation diet. The new GLP-1 inhibitors, the injectable drugs that are for type 2 diabetes, that are being used for weight loss now, which, by the way, there's a shortage for people who are type 2 diabetic who can't even get these medications because they're being overused and overprescribed for somebody that wants to lose 5 or 10 pounds. Now, I've got clients that are in the 400-pound range, so on and so forth, or close to 500, that have lost massive amounts of weight with it. And I'm supporting them in that. I believe that is a great cause for that. But if somebody needs to lose 5 or 10 pounds, you're actually destroying your muscle mass. And I've been saying that for years with these types of medications. And then a few months ago, Harvard came out with a research study that says, guess what? The GLP-1 inhibitors in their weight loss profile, when we look at everything, 50% of the weight loss comes from loss of muscle mass. So we're destroying metabolism by doing that. So enough of that was a little bit of a rabbit trail. There are a lot of reasons why metabolism can change over time. There are a lot of reasons why a person can become insulin resistant, but we're talking specifically about women today. And another one of those reasons is that estrogen can become imbalanced. Well, how does estrogen become imbalanced? Well, when we become insulin resistant, and insulin resistant just simply means that the ability to manage blood sugar and get sugar out of the periphery, meaning outside the cell, to the shuttled to the inside of the cell, becomes more difficult. So therefore, more sugar stays outside the cell. It takes more insulin to get that sugar in the cell. So insulin goes up, that becomes a problem. Insulin's not just an innocuous hormone that controls blood sugar. Insulin does a lot of other things. One of the things that insulin does when it goes high and we become insulin resistant, therefore our pancreas has to put out more insulin. One of the things that happens is that sex hormone bonding globulin goes down. Well, sex hormone bonding globulin, or SHBG, as we call it, when that goes down, your estrogen levels become less regulated. So what estrogen you do have on board, whether it's being taken from an external source, if you're in perimenopause or menopause, and you're taking an exogenous or outside source estrogen, then you can add fuel to the fire by becoming insulin resistant, lowering your SHBG, and actually having no regulatory system for that estrogen. Because what will happen is that SHBG, when it's in high enough levels, it will bind with testosterone and estrogen to help regulate them. And then when the body senses that it needs more available estrogen or testosterone, the SHBG lets go of that, and it sends it out to do its job. But without the SHBG, which is that regulatory mechanism that the body has, we end up in trouble, and it looks like estrogen dominance. But can you see how the root cause of this quote unquote estrogen dominance, which is just a symptom cluster, by the way, it's not a condition, it's a symptom cluster. The estrogen dominance is being caused by the insulin resistance. Now, one of the things I haven't talked about, another reason that insulin resistance can occur, is a deficiency in the autophagy genes. So there are several autophagy genes that take care of this process that we call autophagy. I've talked about this on previous episode about a year ago, but autophagy is the process by which when new cells are formed and old cells die, there's a waste byproduct that has to be cleared from the body. And autophagy is the cleanup crew, so to speak. It gets rid of all that debris and flushes it out of the body, escorts it out of the body. Well, the bottom line is if we have poor genes that cause us not to do that process, one of the first things that's affected is insulin. And we become more insulin resistant if our autophagy genes aren't functioning correctly. Now, there's several things that you can do to overcome that curve. But one of the things that we like to see is we like to make sure that we get proper hormone optimization on board, because without proper hormone optimization, we actually become more and more insulin resistant. Remember when I said one of the reasons that a person can become insulin resistant is because of perimenopause or menopause, that decline in hormones as we age. And if we have that decline in hormones, then we become more and more insulin resistant simply because of that process only. It doesn't have anything to do with the food that we're eating, the amount of exercise that we're getting, how well you take care of your body. If your hormones declining, you're becoming more insulin resistant. So you can be doing everything right, and if the hormones are not being taken care of, you're becoming more insulin resistant. Now, what do you do about that? How can we overcome this curve to become less insulin resistant so that we're not having issues with estrogen dominance? Before I give you that answer, I'm going to tell you about a scenario that happens quite frequently around the clinic. Now, this either occurs when a person goes on vacation, they're gone for a week, 10 days, 14 days. They come back and they feel miserable. They feel estrogen dominant, quote unquote. Okay. So they're having all of these issues with estrogen management because, well, they don't see it this way, but because they've been on vacation, they've been eating things they probably wouldn't normally eat at home. They've probably been drinking things that they probably wouldn't normally be drinking at home. And that sets them on the spiral of rapid insulin resistance. And yes, insulin resistance can be episodic and it can be chronic. We can spike it and make it worse. We can take care of it instantly and bring it back down. And if it's been going on a really long time, it may take a little bit longer. But those episodic reasons, like around the holidays or around vacation, when we haven't been behaving quite like we should or been having a little bit too much fun, those issues can usually be taken care of within about 4 to 6 weeks. And yes, unfortunately, 1 or 2 weeks worth of fun can take 4 to 6 weeks to fix when we're talking about insulin resistance. Now, is it something that people like to hear? No, absolutely not. But it's a conversation I have with my clients every single time when I get the message at the office that so-and-so is called and they're having this, and this problem. The first question I ask them, I said, have you been traveling lately? Have you taken a vacation, had an anniversary, anything like that, birthday? Tell me what's been going on in your life. Have you had a death even, and there's been stress there, or you're going through a divorce and there's been stress and you've not been eating like you should. You've not been going to the gym and taking care of yourself, which burns up insulin, by the way, and helps us become less insulin resistant. So there are any number of things and lifestyle changes that can occur. And so I wanted to throw that out there before I give you the fix, because you can probably guess what the fix is going to be. The fix is going to be, before you check your genetics, before you check your hormones, it's just make sure you're doing everything you can to take care of yourself. You deserve it. I'm not going to say you need to do it. I'm not going to say you should do it. I don't believe in putting that on people, but you deserve to take care of your body. You deserve to make sure that you're eating correctly. You deserve to make sure that your body is moving on a regular basis and getting exercise so that you can do everything within your power to make sure that you're as low on the insulin resistance scale as you possibly can be. Now, there's the whole issue of hormones. There's the whole issue of genetics that we've got over here. So those two issues still have to be addressed. And we can do that very quickly, but you can go a long way towards just managing lifestyle and changing those few things. So people ask me, what are some things that I can cut out of my diet instantly right now that will make me less insulin resistant? First of all, you need to start reading labels. Nobody likes to read labels. But we need to look at the amount of sugars that are in the food that we're eating. And yes, um, even even if we're eating canned foods because we don't have option for much other else, and there's some people that can't afford to buy fresh vegetables. I get it. If you're doing canned foods, just look at the sugar content. Sometimes these companies actually add sugar to the vegetables that they put in cans. It sounds crazy, but it happens. So just make sure you're reading your labels. So watch your sugar intake. Specifically, watch for cane sugar, watch for corn syrup or any corn derivative at all. Okay. And you need to look up the different names that corn can present in when you're looking at it in food. I tell people, if you can, stay away from processed foods altogether. Do the perimeter shopping thing where you're just going around the outsides of the stores. You're buying the good, healthy vegetables and fruits. And don't overdo it on fruits. If you're insulin resistant, you can overdo it on fruits and makes you more insulin resistant or more insulin resistant. So another conversation for another day, but make sure that you're cutting corn out of your diet in any form. Make sure you're cutting white sugar out of your diet. And I will say, and while you're getting this under control, you don't need to fully eliminate bread altogether, but you really need to drastically cut down on bread. And here's what falls into that category: cookies and crackers. A lot of clients that I have say, "Oh, I've cut bread out." And then as I'm doing a dietary review, they're snack people. So they use these little snack crackers. And yeah, they're gluten-free and they're rice crackers, but they're eating, the boxes that those things come in, they're only like 4 ounces in there. I mean, it looks a big box and there's very little in the box, but they're eating a whole box of those things a day as they're snacking on them, using like a vegetable spread or something like that, or even hummus that they're using. So we've really got to watch where we're getting our carbohydrates from. I always tell people, if you're working with somebody that's helping manage diet, obviously the amount of calories you need per day depends on your body mass. It depends on how much weight you want to lose. It depends on what size your body is now, and what your exercise, what you're doing as far as exercise is concerned. And what kind of, so in order to be able to calculate the number of calories you need per day, we need to know those things. I can't really do that on this show. That's beyond the scope of this show. But just for example, a guy my size may need 2,200 calories, 2,300 calories a day. 40% of those calories are going to be from protein. About 30% are going to be from carbohydrates, and about 30% are going to be from fat. That is considered a low fat, low carbohydrate diet. Now, if you're eating the right kind of carbohydrates from fruits and vegetables, you're going to get that 30% very quickly. Okay. It doesn't take much to get 30% of your carbs if you're doing healthy eating. If you're not doing healthy eating, you're going to overshoot and you're going to go way over that really quick. There's an app that I love to recommend. It's free. You can download it on the App Store. It's called Lose It, LOSEIT, Lose It. So you can calculate that and you can see the percentages of the macros that you're putting in. It has a barcode scanner for things like even my bagged vegetables that I buy a lot of times in the produce section. I can just scan that barcode, or the little sticker that's on bananas. Even it'll scan that and it'll enter it in as, okay, that's a banana. So it's kind of crazy, but just use those technology devices that you have in order to start tracking macros and keep your carbohydrates below 30% of your overall caloric intake. Get about 40% from protein, about 30% from carbohydrates and fat, and you're going to start moving in the right direction as far as getting a handle on insulin resistance. Now, not all carbs are equal. Hear me when I say that. So as I said, stay away from cane sugar, stay away from corn derivatives of any kind, and that includes cornmeal. It includes kernel corn. Yes, I know this time of year, it's summer. Everybody loves to eat corn on the cob, and it's fresh from the garden. It tastes great. But while you're trying to get a handle on the insulin resistance, stay away from it. A good thing you're going to notice is you're going to notice that your inflammation actually decreases. So if you're having any kind of joint or body ache, pain, you're going to notice as your insulin resistance gets better under control, those aches and pains are going to start to go away. It will. I promise you, it'll happen every single time. And the third thing that I would recommend other than getting rid of bread in your life just for right now, until we get a better handle on what's going on. Then we can reincorporate that in later. But if another thing that I would recommend eliminating is dairy. Again, it's a temporary thing, but you talk to a lot of people, and dairy is very pro-inflammatory. There's a lot of reasons why dairy can cause issues, and a lot of people don't handle the lactose, which is sugar in dairy products. So we need to kind of watch that very, very closely. So the four things: dairy, bread, and all the things that fall under that category, simple cane sugars and corn of any kind, and corn sugars. So those four things, those four categories are the things that I would say eliminate immediately. And then over time, if we see that you're handling things okay, we can slowly put back in a little bit of carbohydrates from the bread category, and maybe a little bit of dairy in the form of, say, Greek yogurt or things like that, because those are higher end proteins. So you're going to get more protein for your carb on that balance between carbohydrates and protein. And it's just a better way to kind of get dairy if you're one of those people that craves dairy. I don't really crave it that much, so I can live with it or without it. But it's one of those things that I use very sparingly in my diet. And I get 2,300 to 2,400 calories a day and hit the mark most every single day. But I track. If you're not tracking, you're not going to hit your marks. You're not going to understand what's going on. And if you're not tracking, you're not going to get a handle on weight. And if you're not tracking your food, you're not going to get a handle on estrogen dominance, that symptom cluster that I was talking about. Because remember, this is being caused by the insulin resistance, and insulin resistance can be being caused for a lot of reasons, as we've already talked about. But if you're looking to take it one step further and you're curious about, okay, is this my hormones? Is this my genetics? We can take a look at that, and we can even do that via telehealth. So if you're curious about that and want to know more, reach out to me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn at Dr. Brian G. Brown. I'll be glad to talk to you about it, answer any questions that you've got. And if you're just kind of the curious self-starters type and want to know what it looks like to even check your genetics and where you might even need to start on your genetic journey, I've got a free boot camp for you that you can see. If you're watching this live, you can see below. And I'll take the banner down. So drbriangBrown.com/gene hack/bootcamp. You can go there to register for that boot camp. It's totally free of charge. You can work at it in your own pace, and it'll walk you through step by step the things that you need to do and the things that you need to watch for and work on first in order to get a handle on what's going on in your body. That's all I've got for today. Until next time, as always, most appreciated and most grateful that you spent this time with us here today. Until next time, stay in the zone. Dr. Brian Brown.